operating partner at Birch Hill Equity in Canada. David Sloan, president, Inglewood Strategy Group, senior consulting partner of Denison. Just to give you a framework, we started working with David. I don't know, David, we're dating ourselves now over 4 or 5 years. And thank you, Thecla, for the confidence of Virtual Equity Partners. We're delighted to listen to your journey with Mission. And David, we thank you for all the continued support working with Virtual, Thecla, and all. It's yours. Go ahead, Thecla. Thank you.
All right. I think, Nabil, you had asked me to further introduce Thecla.
Please do.
And also talk a little bit about my association with Birch Hill. So I will do that. As Nabil said, Thecla Sweeney is an operating partner at Birch Hill, and she's the chair and CEO of Motion. You'll see on your screen some of the highlights of Thecla's background. All I would add really is that I enjoy very much working with Thecla. I've worked with her on numerous Denison culture projects since I began my stage in 2016. I'd known and worked with several Birch Hill partners, but the firm was part of the Team Bank, where I held a number of senior executive positions over a long career. I'd always valued my association with those people. They were very smart, very collegial, and very growth-driven. And 5 or 6 years ago, I found myself in a conversation with John McIntyre, who's one of the managing partners at Birch Hill, and a long-time associate of mine. John was very keen to add cultural assessments to the management and governance of their portfolio companies, but he hadn't yet found an approach that effectively put shape and structure around the concept of organizational culture. And more importantly, that was able to draw the connection between cultural strength and financial operating. So when I took John through the Denison model, he was intrigued. And after I undertook an assessment of Birch Hill Equity Partners itself, convinced. And since then, I've done assessments for most of Birch Hill's portfolio companies, and some, including Motion, have done more than one. So Thecla is going to take you through the transformation of Motion from an organization that in 2018 was struggling with the integration of multiple acquisitions, including the integration of culture. It was an organization suffering very poor employee morale. He and her team have done a truly remarkable rebuilding job in a relatively short period of time. And along the way, they made very effective use of not just the Denison culture assessment, but also the Denison 360. And I'll say it's been a very rewarding for me to go along with that project. With that, I'm going to hand things over to Thecla, who will explain the Motion story, and we'll be pleased to answer your questions if you have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, David. Can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect. All right. Let me know if I come in and out or anything like that. It's been so great to partner with you, David, and the Denison organization. I'm so pleased to be here today, so thank you for inviting me. And I'm so excited to share the Motion story. Although it is mortifying to have a giant photograph of myself here on the slide, I'll recover. As summarized by David, I'm an operating partner of Birch Hill Equity Partners. Birch Hill is Canada's largest mid-market private equity fund. I've been with Birch Hill on the investment side for just over 17 years, starting originally as an associate. But the reason I'm here today is because I have the great pleasure of leading a truly wonderful company called Motion. I'm going to start the presentation with an overview of Motion and the important work that it does in Canada, followed by a summary of the events that led to my assuming the operational leadership role at Motion and ultimately becoming an operating partner. I'll then walk you through how the Denison framework shaped our transformational journey. The presentation concludes with a video and testimonials from the most important people in this story, who are Motion's clients and its employees. So to start from the beginning, so I'll try and make what is a relatively long story that I'm always happy to talk about. I often get carried away when I'm telling it, so I'll try and keep it pretty short. But Motion is Canada's leader in mobility and accessibility solutions. And so what does that mean? We provide typically complex mobility solutions to both young and old Canadians. Motion Specialties, as we were formerly called, was started in Toronto in 1985. And today we have locations in the Canadian provinces of Ontario, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia, and continue to grow grow our reach, I should say, both organically and by acquisition. Birch Hill acquired Motion in late 2014 from Centric Health, which was a large publicly traded healthcare conglomerate. Centric had acquired dozens of businesses, including a physiotherapy business that had a mobility franchise network called MediChair, and Motion, which was a quasi-franchise mobility provider. At the time of the acquisition, both businesses were distressed. Centric had only owned Motion for 2 years, but over that period of time, the performance of the company had declined substantially for a variety of reasons. You might ask yourself why we bought this business. It was Birch Hill's thesis that it was an undermanaged opportunity, but it was a company that had tremendous potential. And so we embarked on a plan to turn the business around, which included substantial investments in new management, new territories, and a pretty robust IT solution, or ERP system, as it's described here in the slide. After several acquisitions and pretty significant delays around the design of the IT system was rolled out over the course of 2017, and with the thesis that it was going to integrate the network of sites that we had across Canada. And so, one view, one connection, so that everybody would sort of know what was going on. Suffice it to say, the implementation was poorly handled, as was the communication of the company's strategic direction to its employees. In addition, the leadership team forged ahead with all other elements of transformation, with literally no eye to the cultural impact and any consultation with the employee group themselves. So in March 2018, I stepped in in the role of CEO with 3 objectives: to stabilize the operations, to drive profitability, and to engage with our employees and clients. So I'd never been a CEO before. As I said, I had been an investment professional, which is a very different thing. And I recall talking through the situation just before I stepped into the role with one of my brothers. And after sort of summarizing what was going on and what I was planning to do, he asked quite rightly whether I was qualified to do such a job. So after I stopped laughing, I admitted, of course, I was not. But the benefit of this, though, was that I came into the role with no preconceived notions. I had a lot of humility because I didn't know what I didn't know, but I had a singular focus that I needed to see the situation resolved, as I had hundreds of employees and thousands of clients who relied on Motion. I did, however, draw on my Birch Hill due diligence experience. I figured that the best way to try and understand the problem was similar to how we try and understand businesses, which is to ask a lot of questions from as many people as who would answer them. One of the key things we did early on, and I'll talk about it, it's mentioned in a further slide, was I went to each and every location across the country. The previous management team didn't visit any of the sites, or if they did, it was infrequent and only a small subset. And so for those of you who haven't been to Canada, it's a pretty vast distance with locations in some pretty hard to reach places. And I would have at least one leader join me at each of these sessions, and these sessions were listening sessions. So I went in, we booked out several hours with the team. I opened these sessions really by apologizing about the situation that we found ourselves in, a bit of an overview of what I thought, what my hypothesis was about some of the issues that we needed to address, and then really asked folks for candid feedback on whether they agreed with my initial assessment and what other suggestions, changes, or ideas they wanted to share. I think these were relatively cathartic meetings for the employees. There was a lot of passion and there was a lot of frustration over the ways in which we were impeding them from looking after our clients. And so this slide really is a summary of what these sessions started and some of the key decisions that came out of these sessions. Which brings me to Denison. While I continue to get feedback directly from all levels of the organization after my whirlwind tour, I received hundreds of personal emails as well as anonymous feedback. I wanted to keep this communication channel alive. sort of to David's point, I've seen lots of engagement and satisfaction surveys in my tenure at Birch Hill. We look at hundreds of businesses, but I was really struck by Denison, given the link between its methodology and financial results. I also fundamentally believe that if we could change the culture, we could change the financial performance of the business. So in partnership with Sue Gilpin, who was our new people leader, we did our first survey. And as you can see on the far end of the slide, it was pretty ugly. This was accompanied with a lot of comments that were quite forceful in nature, but pretty prescriptive about what some of the employees felt were things that we needed to address and address pronto. But we use this framework and the Denison 360 to structure what to do, and how to guide this transformation, and also how best to coach and support our leaders through it. So I'm going to use mission, adaptability, involvement, and consistency as a bit of a structure for the next few slides. So Refreshing Motion's brand. So as I mentioned, we used to be called Motion Specialties, which is not only challenging to spell, but most people would mispronounce. And we decided that it was time to sort of refresh the brand. This was actually done before I had stepped in. However, originally the thought was it was a great way to engage the teams. The previous team didn't take advantage of this opportunity. Very few people in the company knew of the new branding. And moreover, those that did know about it were kind of confused as to why we were doing it. They thought it was just a marketing program and they didn't really understand what the point of it was. And so we invested a lot of time, in conversation with the team about, why this mattered and what the impact would be on, their uniforms, which there was a lot of, complaints about that, the vehicles that they were driving, which needed to be refreshed, and also the facilities in which they work. This is the last being probably the most substantial change. We really have redesigned pretty much every space at Motion now, and this is to reflect the business that we do. We had a lot of old, outdated spaces that some of which actually weren't accessible, which for obvious reasons is sort of nonsensical. But these new spaces are accessible, they're safe, they're bright, they're modern, they've got communal workspaces. They've also got assessment rooms. And so, when we're seeing a client either for service or for new equipment, a lot of times there's a lot of interaction to make sure that we are providing them with the most appropriate piece of equipment. And there's often a lot of customization that goes along with that. And so by creating a space where we could bring clients in with their family and caregivers, with the referral sources, and actually do that work most efficiently, most effectively in our space has been a huge benefit to the organization. And this was really sort of speaks to the mission part of the Denison survey. Like, does the company know where it's going? But more than that, we actually put pen to paper and wrote down, our vision, mission, and values. We went off-site as a small group. We had a cross-functional group and came up with a straw man that we wanted to discuss with the team. And then we socialized this with the organization, section by section, and solicited feedback on, what our teams wanted to see reflected back in this vision, mission, and values. And then when we launched it, there was a tremendous amount of pride in the organization. And in fact, we published it in each of our locations, and all of our employees sort of sign on to the vision, mission, and values. How do we bring it to life, and how do we engage? How do we involve the employees? And involvement is a big theme for us at Motion. Are people aligned and engaged? We have a lot of employees. We're a very employee-intensive business. And so bringing the vision, mission, and values to life was critically important. And so there's a lot of things that we did, but this is a bit of a highlights reel on some of the things. So monthly town hall meetings. So every location has a monthly town hall. There's a general structure. These aren't just a radio broadcast. These are really an opportunity for the teams to get together, talk about the company, talk about the region, and then talk about specific issues in the location. And it's meant to be a conversation. I think probably early on, they were a little bit more, one-sided. And as the company has continued to evolve, the teams feel much more comfortable about it being a participatory affair. We have quarterly cultural awards, and so these are where peers nominate their peers for exceptional work, whether it's with a client, with each other, just for actually just being a positive force in the workplace, you name it. We have a Care Ambassador program. This was actually a program that existed before, but we reconstituted. In prior, it was, you weren't allowed to say anything negative. It was a bit of a strange construct. Again, this was a way for us to make sure we continue to get feedback to and from. And so each department and region would share what was going on, what was working well, what wasn't, what they were excited about, what they were frustrated about. And we use this also to sort of resolve issues as they came up in a timely manner. We have a sales advisory committee. So most of our equipment is sold through a sales team, or what we call equipment consultants. And, we set up a committee that's chaired by me. We meet every other month for a couple of hours. We have sales representatives from every region. And again, it's a way to create a communication channel between the sales team and leadership, both ways. So if there are things we would like to promote and engage the sales team with, I can share that with them. And if there are frustrations or roadblocks in the sales process in some way, that feedback also comes back to me. We also launched a learning portal, which is our commitment to learning and development, an onboarding program. And then I'll flip to the next slide, which is sort of one of the key things that we've done, which was the launch of Workplace. And so Workplace is really a communication forum internally for our teams. It provides access to the latest company information. It's got chat function, but it's really a democratization of communication. And it's been a hugely, hugely impactful thing for our organization. My favorite section is Motion Moments, where we share stories that clients share with us that celebrate the work that our teams have done. This has had a huge cultural impact on the employee experience. And so not only are people involved, aligned, and engaged, according to Denison, but also the company has adapted. And so, the company's listening. So through various two-way communication forums that we've created, through Workplace, we've adapted. COVID being the most recent example, we changed how we did our sales process given the challenges with funding. We launched a Safe at Home program in response to the fact that many of the elderly folks in Canada didn't want to go into any kind of congregate living situation, and our employees feel, positive and good about that. As mentioned before in Motion Moments, this is a bit of a snapshot of the sort of things that you would see in Motion Moments, which is really a reflection of the consistency around how we're approaching things. We really are one motion now. And the systems, processes, and values that we have are aligned to support our mission. And so you can see some of these wonderful stories. We literally get stories like this every day from our clients, which helps sort of reinforce that we're on the right track. And then similarly, we hear from our clients through Google reviews. And so we've had a steady progression up, which, I'm very pleased to see. And so, what impact did this have on the financial results? Which is obviously important given my private equity orientation and our ownership. We've had significant expansion in site level profitability and consistently. So in 2018, we had many sites that were negative. By early 2019, we were positive across the site network, and we continued to sort of improve the profitability month in and month out. I think it's important to note that all of these results have been achieved also despite COVID. In Ontario, which is our largest market, we've been in rolling lockdowns pretty much since the beginning of March. We're actually in a lockdown right now, but we continue to deliver these results in spite of this. And this is sort of an interesting example, which is that, one of our key markets, we had a very large location, and sort of before the video, I'm just going to give you a short case study. We had a serious cultural deficit in this location. With such a challenge, we determined that we needed to do something pretty radical to change the channel. And so we actually split the location into 3 units. This is actually all two units are co-located, which these numbers reflect. There's actually a third unit on top of this, so the results are actually even more positive than what you would see here. But you name it, we did it. We enhanced operating hours, we increased communication, we invested substantial dollars in our management team there, multiple levels, and a whole bunch of coaching and training around that. And just recently, one of our team members in this location had a pretty harrowing personal experience dealing with the effects of COVID. And I was just so inspired by the support and care that the team provided to her. She sent me a note actually just the other day to say that she believed that that support only happened because we'd invested so much at Motion in our culture, which obviously made me very, very pleased. And so before I turn it over to the video, tomorrow is Thursday, May 20th, is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. It's an awareness day that focuses on digital access and inclusion for more than 1 billion people with disabilities and impairments. And I hope that the following video highlights just how important it is that we realize on Motion's mission, which is to make life accessible for everyone. I will attempt to move to the video. Hopefully I'm successful. So 1 second.
Nellie, are you going to be able to do this?
Yes, I also have a copy if that makes it easier.
Oh, if you'd like to do that, that would be great. Should I stop sharing and then you do that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks very much.
You guys let me know if you can hear and see okay.
Okay.
Ready, steady, go.
Just keep on going.
Wow.
Terrific.
Wow.
Really amazing.
Thank you, Thecla. And David, you worked with Thecla since 2018. Share with us some of those leadership styles that Thecla took upon herself to go to the different locations and have those conversations.
Well, I think that style, the proof of its value is in that video. I think one of the questions I had for Thecla herself was, you made extensive use of face-to-face meetings with employees through town halls, through all sorts of mechanisms, and I would have had to have thought that along the way there were these sort of epiphanies that occurred, which made you think, oh, now I have a handle around what I need to do here. So maybe I'll deflect a little bit and send the question over to Thecla and say, what about those personal interactions? Was there any sort of an epiphany where you said, it's all clear to me now?
Well, there was a lot of epiphanies. I think it's sort of like never-ending epiphanies. I think the act of listening, just in and of itself, was hugely important. So, one that I went there, and one could argue, I remember walking into the first one and going, geez, I don't know, am I going to get yelled and screamed at, egged? I wasn't sure. People were pretty upset. And so I think one, the fact that I kind of went there and put myself out there gave me, some permissions. And then just even listening. So asking people and listening was hugely, hugely powerful. And then communicating, okay, we heard this, we're doing this. We heard you say this, we're doing this. We heard you say this, we're doing this. It gave us momentum. And so, and that built trust. And, that's what had been lost through the transformation, is that the employees no longer believed that the leadership in Motion had their interests or the client's best interests at heart. And, a big part of that kind of gulf was I was trying to say, perhaps we didn't, but we do. And, this is how we're going to show it to you. And again, having a great culture and looking after the clients doesn't mean that and being profitable, those things can live together. And that was, again, a part, and then in fact, I made the point very explicitly. I said, we need to be profitable, because if we're not profitable, we don't have money to invest in salaries, into new facilities, into hiring more people, into expanding, into making sure we have the best custom equipment, all the things that you guys want. We need to be self-sustaining to do that. And so, we need to figure out a path to get there. So there were lots of epiphanies, but listening, I think, is a big one.